Advertising is often seen as a vehicle of cultural meaning in society and an ideological force. Despite the need to understand professionals' knowledge of advertising and consumer, as well as how they perceive gender portrayals and their effects on consumers within the context of their broader institutional environments, there has been no such research to date. Advertisers continue to misunderstand and misrepresent gender by conflating sex, gender, and sexuality, utilizing outdated and inaccurate stereotypes, and portraying unattainable standards. Cultural activities legitimize social structures that make dichotomy of maleness and femaleness in society seems natural. Recent research also demonstrates that similar to women, men compare themselves to advertising ideals and experience feelings of inadequacy, negative self-perception, or vulnerability. To understand the ethical conceptualization of advertising professionals in ad industry using the institutional theory framework, one must understand the three pillars that underlie its institution. The regulative pillar is concerned with setting, monitoring, and sanctioning of rules. The normative pillar places importance on values and norms that defines the goals of an organization and how they direct the perceived appropriate ways to achieving these goals. The cultural cognitive pillar represents the shared understandings that make up social reality and influence the process of meaning making. The researchers hence aim to find out what are the advertising professionals' perceptions of how gender portrayal impact male and female audiences, and in what ways do ethics inform their creative and strategic choices regarding gender portrayal in advertising. In answering the research question, a qualitative approach was adopted. In the first round of data collection, the researcher was fully immersed for 2 weeks in the daily operations of a team of advertising professionals in a large advertising agency in the US. Broad questions on gender in advertising and specific questions about portrayals of gender and its impact on consumers were asked during the semi-structured interviews and focus group. In unstructured interviews and field observations, the researcher took detailed field notes during and immediately following the interactions. The second round of data collection was carried out in greater length and depth and served to assess whether initial findings were salient across different agencies and across geographic regions. Informants were further probed about their gendered conceptualizations, how these notions may affect the ad creation and presentation process, and any potential challenges or conflicts the informants may have faced in their roles. This was done to gain insight into meaning-making processes of ad professionals. In analyzing the data collected, open coding was first used to identify and organize possible teams into categories and subcategories. ASL coding was then used to discover relationships between the categories and subcategories. Lastly, through the process of selective coding, researchers converged on the most salient themes and identified core concepts. Hence, 4 conceptualizations of ad professionals were identified and are discussed in light of the institutional theory framework while factoring the following 3 interrelated dimensions. Silent ad professionals lack personal ethical cognizance and action with regards to gendered messages, often referring to regulatory forces and rules within their institutions to guide their behavior. Dichotomous perceptions held by ad professionals in this category are rooted in both societal discourses and cultural cognitive institutional forces, which leads to a narrow ethical perspective and inaction on their part with regard to responsible gender portrayals of men in advertising. Problem recognition by ad professionals in this category is largely driven by strategic considerations, and their responses are influenced by various broad institutional forces. They are unwilling or unable to take action if it conflicts with their career-related goals, or would do so only insofar as they perceive it to be a strategic business decision. Few ad professionals fall into the conceptualization of walk the walk, but their nuanced understanding of advertising's impact on both men and women, an expression of moral responsibility in making ethical advertising choices, allows them to have a more developed moral perspective. Their responses, which may coincide or conflict with their institutions, are driven largely from their normative beliefs within context of their institutions and society at large. While informants tend to display characteristic response of one conceptualization, depending on the ethical dilemma they face, they may shift their conceptualization. It is possible that over time and with more experience, professionals may refine their understandings and actions. Advertising professionals as actors within the ad industry conceptualizes the impact of gender advertising images on men and women in ways that largely mirror dominant societal discourses about gender and vulnerability. Through their work, they reiterate and reinforce or challenge such discourses. However, as consumers themselves, ad professionals also bring their own set of cultural assumptions and personal experience to their jobs. Hence, institutions should be viewed as processes that can undergo change over time and should work towards promoting greater understanding of the taken-for-granted notions of gender and vulnerability. Ad professionals themselves must go further in their recognition of the ethics of gender pertaining to both women and men, and they must reconcile these considerations with their desires to develop creative ads and to meet client needs, without which they risk reiterating outdated gender roles and perpetuating an ad culture where consumer welfare is not a priority. There exist some limitations in this study in question, and they provide opportunities for future research. Firstly, this study reveals only the range of responses through the experiences of participants. It does not seek and hence is limited in its ability to represent the broader population. Most of the participants in the first round of data collection were white Caucasian males, similar to the background of creatives in the advertising industry. Future research can focus on getting a more nuanced understanding of how diversity of an ad team affects the ad creation process. Differences in informant's responses between ranks or across agency classifications were also not examined. More in-depth investigation of the influence of rank and agency size and structure on the ethical conceptualizations of ad professionals can be done. This study examined ad professionals from 9 agencies within a short time frame. Future research can take the form of longitudinal studies with the aim to understand how conceptualization of gender portrayals and ethical considerations develop over time within different agency cultures and also among individuals as they move forward in their career. Lastly, more research can also be done that aims to uncover other powerful discourses, understand the lack of agency as a result of male-dominated environment and client demands, and how these tensions can be managed to advance an agenda of enhanced ethical decision-making, as well as to explore resources and interventions that might be effective and bring about social and institutional changes over time.